whispers began with an innocuous glance, a navy Soho House bag on a yacht. It wasn't nostalgia that hit Harry, but something far worse, recognition. He had seen this world before, not as an outsider, but as someone who knew the subtle mechanics behind it. Soho House wasn't just a luxury club, it was an elite ecosystem designed to position the right people in the right places.
This image. The reason why these pictures are so problematic for Meghan Markle is because these pictures place her with Jeffrey Epstein, and because now it's been confirmed that she was there with him. I mean, we have Virginia Roberts, John Lefebvre, who was also part of that circle. We have her friends calling her for yacht week as early as Markle has been going through those shady deals all along with Jeffrey Epstein. She was coming to New York all the time. She was in New York when Andrew was in New York for an entire month in September 2013. Sure that nobody would poke holes on this story, the narrative that she was putting out, even though it was glaringly obvious.
Harry's world had been carefully curated, and Meghan wasn't an accidental player in it. Soho House didn't hand out memberships to random struggling actresses. It was a strategy, a quiet investment. Meghan's lifestyle, luxurious trips, designer wardrobes, and exclusive events didn't add up. Harry began to unravel the hidden layers of her past.
The money to fly business class all over the world. Let me give you another example. This is Rachel Meghan Markle in 2006 at the Hamptons, at a Hamptons party where Jeffrey...
The more Harry delved into Meghan's Soho House connections, the darker the truth became. Meghan wasn't just passing through this world, she had been deeply embedded. Multiple memberships, cities, events, nothing was left to chance. She had positioned herself in places where doors opened before she even knocked. As Harry started piecing everything together, he couldn't ignore the suspicious presence of Marcus Anderson, a man always just a step away from the spotlight, but never far from power. Was he Meghan's silent architect shaping her rise? Harry felt something cold and unsettling settle deep inside him. This wasn't love, it was a calculated ascent.
Through a mutual kind of introduction, a friend of a friend, Meghan Markle wanted...
Marcus wasn't just a connector, he was a gatekeeper. The kind of person who knew which women were ambitious enough to climb the social ladder and which men had the power to make it happen. And Meghan Markle, she was his long-term success story, maneuvered through the elite circles, carefully placed in strategic positions to maximize her visibility and influence.
She was a nobody. So she's getting away with a lot of things, but just like Sophia of Sweden, the bubble is about to burst. And the royal family...
Harry's questions led to more unsettling truths. Comped memberships, strategic invitations, private dinners, nothing was casual, nothing was accidental. Meghan had been quietly backed, supported, and sponsored by unseen hands that had crafted her rise. And the question that haunted Harry more than any other, had he been the final destination of a carefully executed plan? As the facts became undeniable, Harry couldn't escape the feeling that his entire relationship with Meghan had been shaped long before they met. And the idea that he had been brought into this web not for who he was, but for what he represented was too much to bear. The connection between Meghan and Marcus Anderson, an insider who had direct access to the highest echelons of power, was no coincidence. Harry's mind raced as he pieced together a disturbing timeline of events, polo matches, charity galas, and private dinners where Meghan was always present, always near, but never too close to raise alarms. Harry began questioning everything. Every encounter with Meghan, every chance meeting. Had they really met by accident, or had she always been strategically placed? The closer he looked, the more it became clear.
The thing is that Richard Caring thought that Meghan was too old for him, and he was generally disinterested. But she kind of made it her mission to win him over.
Meghan's climb had been engineered long before their paths crossed. And now Harry had to face the painful truth. He wasn't the beginning of Meghan's story, he was the final piece in someone else's grand design. The deeper Harry dug, the more he saw how orchestrated his life had been, and the more humiliated he felt. Meghan's rise wasn't the result of ambition or love, but a meticulously planned strategy. And Harry had been played. As Harry continued his quiet investigation, a sick sickening truth started to form in his mind, Meghan's rise hadn't just been about hard work or luck, it had been about money, connections, and timing. Every hotel stay, every designer dress, every lavish event she attended, none of it added up when compared to her acting salary. Meghan's lifestyle was being funded by someone who expected something in return. And that realization hit Harry like a punch to the gut. He started to connect the dots, the flights, the lavish dinners, the Soho House memberships, and suddenly it wasn't about Meghan's charm or beauty anymore. It was about the system she was plugged into, and the system had been built to work in her favor. Harry had always wanted to believe that love was the driving force behind their relationship, but now he had to confront a terrifying possibility. Meghan wasn't just with him for love, she was with him because he was the final prize in a long-standing plan. The more he added up the numbers, the more it became clear Meghan's rise had never been organic. It had been carefully calculated, financed, and directed by people who knew exactly what they were doing. Harry's life, everything he thought was special, had been a pawn in a game that he was just now starting to understand. And then came the bombshell that shattered him to the core. That Meghan's Soho House membership hadn't just been given to her out of kindness, it had been completely paid for, comped for 5 years with no traceable payments or invoices. Marcus Anderson, the man who had shaped Meghan's environment, had been behind it all. And it wasn't a favor, it was a bet. Soho House doesn't invest in people they don't expect to deliver. Meghan had been cultivated, positioned, and now Harry had to face the fact that he was just another piece in the puzzle. As Harry sat there staring at the numbers, the pieces finally snapped into place. His stomach churned as he realized how deeply Meghan had been inserted into these elite networks. Yacht weeks, designer wardrobes, secret dinners, nothing had been spontaneous, nothing had been the result of luck. It had all been strategically placed. The truth was undeniable, someone had been funding Meghan's rise, and Harry was just the latest chapter in a well-written book. The thought made his chest tighten. Meghan wasn't just in his world, she had been groomed for it, and he had fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. Harry had been chosen, but not because of love, not because of who he was. He was chosen because of what he represented: a prince, a royal, a final milestone in a grand plan to claim the ultimate prize. And the more Harry reflected, the clearer it became. The wedding, which he had once viewed as the happiest day of his life, now felt like the final act of a well-rehearsed play. Meghan's connections, the Soho House guests, the power players in the room, it was all starting to look too carefully crafted to be real. He replayed everything in his head like a movie on repeat. Why had Meghan been so embedded in the London social circles even before their paths crossed? Why did she always know the right people, be in the right places, with the right connections? Everything now felt orchestrated, and the worst part was that Harry had been blind to it all. And that's when the bombshell really hit. The money, the lifestyle. It wasn't just a case of good fortune. This wasn't the kind of life someone could live off a cable actress salary. Harry's heart sank as he pieced it together. Someone had been backing Meghan, giving her the funding and support she needed to maintain the illusion of success. This wasn't a rags to riches story. This was the story of a woman carefully constructed, moving from one social circle to another, always one step ahead and always protected. The more Harry looked at it, the more the reality set in. Meghan's entire past, her rise, her access, her privileges had been engineered, and he had been a part of the plan. He wasn't the Prince Charming who came to rescue her. He was the final act in a long-term strategy. And the worst part, she had never told him the full truth. Every smile, every kiss, every moment of connection now felt like part of the performance, carefully calculated and rehearsed. As Harry reflected on it all, the sickening realization began to sink in. This wasn't just love, this was ambition. And it wasn't just Meghan's ambition, it was a web of people who had been carefully positioning her for success. Harry had never been the beginning of her story, he had been the endgame. As the weeks passed, the more Harry uncovered, the more he felt the weight of the betrayal. Not just from Meghan, but from himself. He had allowed himself to believe in something that wasn't true. It had all been a carefully crafted illusion, and now the truth was undeniable. He wasn't sure who he was grieving for, the woman he thought he knew, or the man he had become. The worst part was the shame. It wasn't a loud, dramatic realization. It wasn't a public confrontation. It was quiet, slow, and painful. And the more Harry thought about it, the more he realized his family had been right. His brother had warned him, his friends had whispered, but Harry had refused to listen. And now it was too late. The world around Harry felt like it was crumbling. His family, his status, his reputation, it was all at risk. And as the tabloids feasted on the scandal, Harry could only sit in the shadows, wrestling with the truth he had so desperately tried to avoid. As Harry sifted through the wreckage of his thoughts, everything he had once believed about love and destiny felt like a lie. The story he had told himself, the fairy tale that he had clung to for dear life, suddenly didn't hold up. Meghan had not fallen into his life by chance. She had navigated toward him carefully, deliberately, and with intent. Every move had been planned, every step calculated. The more he thought about it, the more the shame crept in. This wasn't just about the money, the lifestyle, or the luxury. It was about the manipulation, the subtle yet unmistakable reality that Harry had been chosen for his role, not because of who he was, but because of what he represented. He had been a prize in someone else's game, and the worst part was he had never seen it coming. Harry's heart twisted with the realization that Meghan's rise wasn't fueled by her acting career alone. Now, this had always been about access, influence, and connections. People had invested in her, strategically placed her in the right circles, backed her rise with money and power. And now, Harry had to come to terms with the fact that he was simply the end of the line in a well-orchestrated scheme. The phone calls, the messages, the sudden connections, they weren't just coincidences. Everything had been engineered, from her introduction to him, to their engagement, to the wedding that Harry once believed was the pinnacle of their love story. But in hindsight, it all felt like a calculated move, a moment where the final pieces fell into place. It wasn't just the financial backing that hurt, it was the betrayal of trust. Harry had wanted to believe in the love they shared, the spontaneity of their connection. He had wanted to believe that Meghan was with him for him, not because of some grand design. But now, as the layers peeled back, it was clear he had been part of the plan, the final step in a long-term goal. The more Harry thought about it, the more he realized that he had never been the beginning of Meghan's journey. He had only arrived when it was time to seal the deal, to complete a carefully laid plan, and the thought of it made his stomach churn. He wasn't her partner, he was her outcome. And so Harry was left with the painful truth. Love can survive ambition, but what happens when imbalance takes root? What happens when love isn't the driving force, but strategy is? Could he ever look at Meghan the same way again? As Harry sat there, the weight of the truth bearing down on him, one thing became clear: his fairy tale had never been real. It had always been about something far bigger, and now it was all coming crashing down. Coming crashing down. Coming crashing down. Coming